I was watching the show on the BBC called The Pilgrimage, where 7 celebrities of various faith backgrounds take 2 weeks to walk an ancient Christian pilgrimage route through the United Kingdom. In this episode, they're walking through Wales, and there was a part of the episode that got me thinking. This is the clip.
Amanda Lovett has 6 children and has always been a practicing Catholic, like her mum.
I am still a Catholic and I still love my faith, but I want to know if I truly fit in the Catholic religion anymore. There are some questions there at the moment, like the Catholic Church not believing in same-sex marriages, same-sex relationships. I want to understand why. Surely we should be able to love, someone who loves us back. I think God would want us to question things.
Now, it's not my intention to talk about Catholicism or same-sex marriage here today. There is, of course, much to say about both of those topics, and I've done that many times in the past, and no doubt I'll talk about them many times again in the future as well. But the bit I just really want to focus on in this particular video is just that comment right at the end where she said, I think God would want us to question things. That's the bit that really stood out as I watched this. So basically, she's struggling with the idea that there's a worldly system of thought. There's a worldly ideology which she's been exposed to, surrounded by. She's clearly imbibed it, accepts it, agrees with it regarding same-sex marriage. But in opposition to that, she's aware that there's a biblical system of belief, and she knows it stands in contrast. So there's a worldly system here, and there's a biblical system here, but she finds herself persuaded by the worldly system. She's come to regard that as being wisdom, and as a result, it's throwing her faith in the Bible into some doubt. And she says, I think God would want us to question the biblical system. Which is actually not wrong, by the way. God does invite inquiry. He invites people to ask questions and to wrestle with him. Jacob wrestled with God. Habakkuk questioned God. The Psalms have lots of questions for God. If you come to God with an earnest heart for answers because you really want to understand, then that's absolutely fine. God is patient and he will answer those questions. That's fine. That's okay. That's not the problem here. However, as I watched that clip, I couldn't help but think, I hope you're going to question the worldly system as well at some point. I mean, how about that? How about questioning the worldly system of belief and applying the same levels of rigor and scrutiny to that? Because it's fair to say that over the past few decades, our culture as a whole has moved away from the Bible and has started embracing this worldly, anti-biblical system of thought. And let's just take a moment to consider where that's actually led us. Because anxiety levels are rising at incredible rates today. We have record levels of anxiety, in fact. Some have even described it as an epidemic of anxiety. Stress levels have risen consistently for many years and now negatively affects a majority of people on a weekly basis. Depression is now at record levels. Around 71% of British people are now not getting enough sleep. Suicide is now the 3rd leading cause of death and the leading cause of death in men under 50. Never before has our society been so beset by a cacophony of fatherlessness, broken homes, sexually transmitted infections, porn addictions, loneliness, lack of friendships, singleness, political division, economic strife, oppressive government, threats to freedom and free speech. Our education systems are broken. The judiciary is compromised. The health service is falling apart. There's a growing acceptance of paedophilia even. People are increasingly becoming more worried and less happy. So again, my question is, at what point do you start asking the same questions of the worldly system? At what point do you start thinking this might not actually be wisdom after all? I mean, question God, okay, that's fine. But when are you going to start applying the same levels of scrutiny and rigor to this system of belief? The Bible says a good tree produces good fruit and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A variation of that would be good ideas produce good results, bad ideas produce bad results. And if we're to be honest, the fruit of this system has been utterly cataclysmic for our civilization. It's been an unmitigated disaster. Can anyone honestly say otherwise? Furthermore, have you ever noticed how the more deeply someone imbibes the current worldly system, the worse the fruit just seems to get? The more people imbibe intersectionality, identity politics, woke theory, feminism, etc., the more anxious they become, the more stressed they become, the more depressed they become, the more likely they are to be on some kind of medication for mental health issues, the more angry they become, the more confused they become, the more bizarre they become. Just take a look. Isn't it very clear that the ideas these people have imbibed have damaged them internally? And we all know what these ideas are. You can tell just by looking at these people what ideas they hold, what their politics are. It's written all over them. These people will tell you that they have the answers, that what they believe in is wisdom, that everyone should be like them and hold the same thoughts they do. And if everybody did that, then the world would be a great place to be. And yet look at the fruit in their own lives. They're anxious, depressed, they vandalize themselves and are basically in ruins. At what point do you question the ideology then and say, actually, that's not doing much good? When you actually apply it, this is awful. It's clearly a flawed and mistaken ideology. I mean, look at the before and after shots of women who've imbibed the intersectional theory of feminism. Isn't it obvious just from their appearance that they've been hugely damaged by this ideology? Once they looked beautiful and happy, now they look vandalized and depressed. When you see the effects of it, when you see the fruit of it, the more you just have to admit it's a very, very bad tree. And the quicker you abandon it, the better. It really acts like a kind of virus. The more you have of it, the worse the outcomes get. So again, I ask the question, at what point are you going to start thinking, well, maybe this ideology is flawed. Maybe we should abandon this. Maybe it's wrong. Question God, that's okay. But when are you going to start questioning this? When are you going to start applying the same levels of rigor and scrutiny on this? I mean, how obvious does it need to get before you abandon all of these worldly ideas? How bad does the fruit need to be? And how long till we admit that actually, when Christianity is applied, it produces great fruit? More generosity, more kindness, more happiness, more calmness, more contentment. The stats for this are there to see. All you have to do is look them up. People who imbibe this ideology do badly. People who imbibe this ideology prosper. In fact, if you're someone who's imbibed this ideology, intersectionality, feminism, etc., and now you're anxious and depressed and on medication, then I recommend you do this. Get a Bible, start reading it, going to church, start following the Bible. I can guarantee that you will soon notice a huge improvement in your life. But anyway, all I want to say is it's time to question culture. The fruit of this has been absolutely atrocious because really, quite simply, it's a very bad tree.